In 2018 I reviewed a 2002 dungeon crawler Arx Fatalis that was meant as a spiritual successor to Ultima Underworld games that had created the subgenre of immersive sims. While I was doing research for that episode, I came across another spiritual successor that had been funded by Kickstarter and was just coming right around the corner. And it was creative led by Paul Neurath, who had done the same for the previously mentioned games and a surprisingly fine expansion, Neverwinter Night Shadows of Undrentide. I was going to make a mention about this game, Underworld Ascendant, at the end of my review, but in the end I forgot. And turns out that it was the right call, as its unfamously botched launch got it a 37 average on Metacritic, making it that year's 9th worst. And it was equally abysmal on Steam as well, but after some bug fixes and updating, it raised to below the negative zone to 42% of positives. So let's see how shining of a Kusoge treasure this turned out to be. Other members of the creative team seem to be the game director and one of the writers, Joe Fielder, who has also been penning Bioshock Infinite, another writer, Chris Avellone, who has written for such role-playing classics as Fallout New Vegas and Pillars of Eternity duology, and another writer, Crispin Boyer, who has mainly done localizing for such games as Dragon's Dogma and Monster Hunter 3 and 4. Speaking of writing, there's some confusing on how much this is an official third entry to Ultima Underworld, as while the developers didn't have the rights to use the Ultima name, they did have rights for setting and characters. That is an interesting thought. If I had played those games, could I recognize any locations? But let's get to the first warning sign. A menu option for downloadable expansions that says something is coming there later. And it has remained there unchanged for the past 6 years. They sure had plans for this game, huh? Quite optimistic of them to still hold on that, even when it became evident that $860,000 of Kickstarter money is not enough for a game of this caliber. After the bare-bones character creator plaintext informs that our hero, who I have named Masanthir, has nightmares of some underground fantasy land called Stygian Abyss, and then they're there for real! Yep, no transition, just flopping into the gameplay and getting mocked by the sealed father of monsters Typhoon, played by Imari Williams, who wishes to plunge the world into darkness or something. He's not fleshed out. Who, however, is fleshed to some degree is the tutorial-giving ghost of the first human settlement founder Gabrius, played by Stephen Russell, who also gives the game's best performance.
I seek not to teach you, but to make you think.
You could also say that he voices the only character in this game. Sure, there are other talents like Ruda Wolf, Terry Brosius, David Fennoy, and Liam O'Brien giving voices to all kinds of lizard and human folk, but all they amount to are shopkeepers or quest givers with no visible personality. I don't know how the narrative elements were done in Ultima Underworld duology, but I'm fairly certain it was done better than this game's bare-bones execution. The atmosphere is seemingly in its place. Ambient sound has echoing hollow mystique, and graphics don't look too unappealing either. However, as soon as you leave the tutorial caverns, it becomes evident that unlike some immersive sim classics, this game doesn't feel like a living, breathing world. It's more of a static theme park or a movie set where players are on a tour. Sure, there are collectible lore drops that build the mythology, but discovering lore is fun only if I care about the main story, otherwise it feels disconnected. Though perhaps the devs had more story in mind, but due to the smaller than expected budget, they had to cut stuff out. A theory that is supported by 3 factions of elves, dwarves and mushroom folk that compete for resources and power. During my playthrough I saw no elves or dwarves and only one mushroom person because all this faction mess amounts to in the final game
is 3 different side missions you are allowed to access to after clearing the main quest from an area.
The game tries to create tension with a doomsday clock that moves forward after about 1 to 2 completed main quests, and if it moves forward 10 times, then Tafuna rises and destroys the world. Apparently, I didn't go far enough to verify the claim. It can be turned backwards by offering the clock the essence of a lich, and it makes me question why this quest was made time constrained in the first place, other than the game's plot of forcing the players to do everything it has to offer. And that works as a segue to the game's infamous level up system that is so unintuitive that even Daggerfall will scold it.
Like the simple character creation may have alluded to, there are no levels, but unlike you may think, you won't upgrade your stats by doing mundane actions. Oh no. You have to do feats in order to get points for buying new abilities. These feats are such things like defeating an enemy without getting damage, a separate one against a group of enemies, jump very long, kill an enemy with fire, getting an important item without getting detected, and so on. Though there's some more out of there stuff like blocking an arrow with an object you're holding. Yeah, usually immersive sim games encourage players to try everything, but this game forces them to try everything by holding character progression hostage. It's a pity too, as the developers have managed to make enough elements to the levels where players could potentially enjoy experimenting both in parkour and combat encounters. Though even on those cases it's often unintentional due to wonky physics.
It has also gotten flack for the AI's bottomless stupidity, though I don't think that claim is fully accurate. More that it is inconsistent.
One example are these imprisoned Saurian mages who can be helpful with tougher encounters and then at the very next moments can't find their way out of a sleeping bag. The combat tends to get equally repetitive with the quest due to small variation in enemy types and battle movements, though the spells can add something to it, assuming you know how to get mana back, as the game doesn't offer many ways for it. The spells however tend to be underwhelming. I mean, what kind of self-respecting fireball spell works like this? And the further I went, the more of the game's misguided design choices and faulty code started to gnaw my morale. All the most memorable moments were caused accidentally when interacting with the game's jittery world, and then huge chunks were used on shopping that is also unintuitive because there's no stats to tell how powerful the weapons. What the fuck?
I couldn't have asked for a more fitting metaphor to end my playthrough on. Underworld Ascendant is yet another example on what happens if you try to do the same old tricks without adapting them with times.
The game seems to reflect the equally unlucky Ultima main series successor Shroud of the Avatar Forsaken Virtues, though to my understanding at least that game works as intended. The buggy physics engine could lend itself for ironical enjoyment, but the world and the story feel too hollow and unfinished. Character building is tied to a list of tricks and by doing so turn them into chores, and while audiovisuals are fine, they can't hide the game's shortcomings. The developers were so focused on doing a playfield that they forgot to put in the most important aspect, a reason for people to care.
Mr. Boyer's career after this is a mystery, but for the rest, Mr. Avalon has continued steadily with the likes of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and Mr. Fielder has done the same with the likes of Deathloop. Even Mr. Neurath, even though he haven't published anything after this, is still working with the development firm Otherside Entertainment, and they have 2 upcoming projects, Argos Riders of the Storm and Thick as Thieves, so perhaps they can sprout something worthwhile in the future. No doubt that such a glorious mess as this game deserves its place on my bottom 100 list, so it is time to say farewells to Dark Matter. Oh hey, it's the first game that I reviewed on this show! How the times have flied. Yeah, very mediocre representative of Metroidvania genre, but if you want to know the full details, go watch my review of it. It could really use some views. That and Ginger Beyond the Crystal review, that one only recently managed to break into double digits.